Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News. And good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning. And we're going to get into honoring God with our body. So God, please guard our mind and our thoughts. Help me to fix my thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. So I will think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. God, please protect our ears and help us listen to your voice. God, help me to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. God, please protect our eyes from sin's damage. God, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully. God, please speak life over our mouth. God, set a guard over my mouth. Lord, keep watch over the doors of my lips. God, please help our hands to serve generously. God, help me to do good to everyone, and especially to those who belong to our family in the faith. God, please protect our reproductive organs and help us to honor you with purity. God, help me to honor you with my body. And God, please protect our feet as we walk along your path. God, let your word be a lamp for my feet and a light on my path. And if this is your first time joining us this morning, this is something that I try to do every morning. Sometimes I'm not perfect at it. Sometimes I jump straight into the news, but I like to do that and how to honor God with our body, just to set our hearts and our minds right before we dive into all of this news. There's been a lot going on. There's been a few indictments going on, but I wanted to take a little bit of a blast from the past from last year. And I did this show in October of last year just to set it up. And Alex Jones was actually talking about Antifa at that time. So let's check this out.
Friends of Democracy, Action Bulletin BW10418-15 Command Attack Plan with all the officers' signatures and everything else.
Fighting crime is more than just getting the bad guy off the streets. It's breaking down the organization brick by brick. Just like we did with cartels, we're going to take the same approach, President Trump, with Antifa. Destroy the entire organization from top to bottom. We're going to take them apart. Thanks to your bold leadership and the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization, which is exactly what they are, Americans will no longer tolerate their unhinged violence.
We got the documents almost a decade ago from inside the Soros operation. It's Friends of Democracy runs, funds, and commands, takes the other NGO money, and runs the attacks around the country and gives the orders. And Alexander Soros is one of the main funders of it, in charge of it. So there it is. We reposted the article on Infowars.com a few months ago as a flashback. Democrats still plan for civil unrest and martial law in Baltimore. But what it really is about, the main Antifa control arm discovered. Trump's asking, who takes all the money from the NGOs and funnels it to them? And they say, well, sir, we're going to file a report on that. Here it is. Same thing in Europe. Same organizations, same groups. This is key to the Justice Department's investigation and the declaration by the president that they're an international terror group. Okay? It tells it all. This is absolute racketeering, organized crime, terrorism, domestic, international, and it's how it's directed and how it operates. It's not headless. It's not autonomous. It is totally controlled. And back when I would cover it, Lou Dobbs would cover it, we get sued and attacked and taken off the air because they were successful at keeping this information away from Congress and everybody else. So there is the smoking gun.
Okay. So that was from last year. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because now a lot of these organizations actually have been held to account so far, right? So far. Now, Alex did bring up Friends of Democracy. So I wanted to bring that up to you guys really quick. And you can find that on Open Secrets. I'll make sure I try to link this particular part of the website for Open Secrets, so you guys can go right here. But if you just go to Open Secrets and you type in Friends of Democracy, you should get this. What I noticed is there were only donations up to 2016 that they accounted for. That's it. So if you go to 2018, there's nothing there, which is very interesting. But if you go back to 2016, one of the names that stood out to me was Jonathan Soros. Now, there is the father, right? Mr. Soros. And then I want to say Alex Soros is one of his other sons as well. But every voice they were donating to Friends of Democracy. So it's going to be interesting to see how the DOJ does handle this. Are you now going to still go after the Friends of Democracy, right? Because you've gone after all these other people. Like this is going to get really interesting. Now, I want to play just part of this video, and this is just outlining some of the recent indictments that we are going to see and have seen.
First test of this terror designation of Antifa is the Prairieland defendants in Texas. These were the individuals who conspired to attack a federal facility, an ICE facility in Texas, actually shot a local police officer in the neck. This morning, they were sentenced. This from our friend Andy No. Check out his No Comment Substack. He covers Antifa better than anyone else. North Texas Antifa terror cell members sentenced to combined 450 years in federal prison. So these individuals were not just charged as terrorists. They were convicted as terrorists, and they will serve hard time in federal prison as terrorists. According to No, in the background here, the cell plotted and carried out an attack on the Prairieland ICE Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas on July 4th of last year. So we're coming up on 1 year since this happened. That's also a very quick conviction, I will say, a very quick process, just a year for something like this. It says jurors found the defendants guilty of offenses including providing material support to terrorists, rioting, conspiracy involving explosives and related crimes. The group used explosive fireworks to lure federal agents and facility personnel from the detention center before opening fire. Now, the so-called ringleader of all of this is a Antifa operative named Benjamin Song, and he identified himself as Antifa. Andy No has multiple images of him dressed head to toe in black bloc. That's what black bloc looks like when we talk about how these Antifa terrorists style themselves and their communication tactics. This case out of Texas is just exhibit A of what me and others mean, and what we told the president when we went to brief him on Antifa last year about, you can complain about, oh, Antifa doesn't have an organized structure. That's the point of Antifa. So Benjamin Song was sentenced to 100 years in prison. He will die in prison. For attempted murder and discharging a firearm in furtherance of a crime of violence. He is the one who shot Alvarado Police Lieutenant Thomas Gross in the neck, and thankfully the lieutenant was able to survive. But can you go back to that picture quick? Because I think it also shows something when you unmask Antifa. Look how intimidating he looks on the left. And that's the goal of what they wear and the black bloc and all this stuff. And look what an absolute weak-looking coward of a man he actually looks like in real life.
Okay, a lot of adjectives. Not going to get into it. But I just wanted to point out, like, 450 years combined, like, they're not playing with these people. And I'll see if I can link that older show that I did back in October, because I mentioned a few other things in that video after Alex was talking. And it's like, if people are going along with this, they may be in for a world of trouble. Right. And that's what Alex Jones was trying to say. But people kept thinking, oh, they're not a terrorist organization. That you're just saying these things. 450 years combined between these 15 people. We can do some fast math. They're at least going to get, let's say, a minimum of 50 years or less. Like 30, was that about 30 years? 450, yeah, 30 years. At least. Before they're going to be trusted to go back out on the street. Telling of what's going to happen going forward, because I think a lot of these organizations, they really don't think they're going to be held to account. Now, I want to play this next one, and then we're going to get into more of the background, and I'll take you to the DOJ website just for the cases that are mentioned.
Peaceful protests anymore. We're not talking about having polite conversations anymore.
Today, a federal indictment was unsealed, charging 15 defendants with conspiracy to impede or injure federal officers and other charges related to efforts of two Minneapolis-based Antifa groups that violently opposed the enforcement of federal law in our state. The defendants are members and associates of Direct Action Minnesota. Today's charges and arrests reflect a broad federal effort to address organized, lawless behavior which seeks to disrupt the execution of federal law, endanger law enforcement, and importantly, endanger the very communities that these defendants falsely claim to be protecting.
Yeah, but I find it fascinating that each of these groups had 15 people. Is that I don't want to call it like a magic number, but like, what are we doing? Like 15 in Texas and 15 in Minnesota? What is this about this 15 number? I just find that interesting. So what I wanted to do, I'm going to take you guys to the first one. And this one is about the Prairie Land, but this is from March of this year, right? When they were actually convicted. Now we know they've been, charged and everything. Like it's over. It's a 12-day trial, 210 exhibits. And of course, you saw the video with Pam Bondi saying Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization that has been allowed to flourish in Democrat-led cities, not under President Trump. Okay, so I will definitely make sure you have the link to this so you can see it. And it does have some pictures of the exploding fireworks at the detention center trying to disrupt, right? Antifa cell members, vandalism. But what I find fascinating is we've seen a lot of that vandalism everywhere. So if this happened in Texas and also happened in Minnesota, what's going to happen to Los Angeles or Portland, Oregon, right? Or Illinois? There are other locations where this stuff has occurred. Yeah. I kept saying it. I was like, people throwing themselves on cars and doing all this stuff. I was like, you are going to go to prison. You do not mess with federal agents. What is wrong with you? It's one thing to protest across the street and yell and scream and do whatever. It's another thing to actually impede them from doing their job. Now, here are the 15 members, of Direct Action Minnesota in Minneapolis, a Minneapolis-based action group with Antifa ties. Okay, and so they've been charged, and there's been indictments. They haven't been sentenced yet, so they still have to go through trials. And I heard about this yesterday from another podcaster, and I was just kind of like, okay, why don't you ever show the actual indictment, documents that you're talking about, or at least lead people to the actual website? Well, you know what? I'm going to show you guys here. Here's the actual indictment. Let me make it a little bit bigger so you guys can see it. Okay. But here it is. And this up top, this is the date that it was filed. So this was actually filed June 11th. Okay, so about a week ago, roughly. 2 weeks, 13 days. I'll give it 2 weeks. So, and here are all of the individuals listed that the United States is going up against. So these are the defendants here. And again, this is for Minneapolis. Okay. And this is on the DOJ website, and I have the link there for you guys. But it says from in and around January 2026 through in and around June 2026 in the District of Minnesota. So they've been tracking them since the beginning of this year. So we know all the stuff that happened with the unfortunate unaliving of Renee Good and everything else that's been going on the No King. They probably didn't bring the No Kings protest in there, but that also happened, right? So they list the defendants here. Let me get down. Did knowingly conspire with other persons known and unknown to the grand jury to prevent by force, intimidation, and threats of officers and employees of the United States Department of Homeland Security, which includes United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, from discharging their duties, their officers in violation of Title 18 USC Code Section 372. And I already said Section 111, but 372 is actually where this applies. And people really thought and still think that they can stop these federal agents from doing their job and push them. I'm like, y'all are going to go to jail. They're just getting started. Okay. So if you were at any of these protests, pushing up against officers, throwing yourselves on their cars, trying to stop their cars, thinking like, I'm just doing justice here, you're going to prison. They have facial recognition. They hadn't already clocked y'all. They're like, we don't have to arrest you now. We're just going to come for you later. Yeah, all this is happening. Every single bit of it. I'm like, okay. All righty then. Now, so I wanted to go back and just check out, here with the indictments. And we're just really focusing on Minnesota right now. Because with Texas, they've already indicted them and charged them, and they've been sentenced. So we're just awaiting for that same follow through here. And I know people think, oh, is it going to take a year? I don't think so. I think they're going to be sentenced before the end of the year because now they already have a blueprint of how they do this. So it's going to be even faster now. Again, y'all sitting out there thinking, oh, we've just gotten away with everything. The internet is forever. You got to remember, they have the Wayback Machine. Just saying. Y'all walked into the poo. It's bad. It's bad. So the charges alleged from activities during and around the Trump administration's Operation Metro Surge, right? Immigration enforcement actions in the Twin Cities. Prosecutors allege coordinated efforts involving surveillance, doxing, blockades, harassment, threats, assaults, and property damage aimed at impeding federal officers, primarily ICE and HSI, from performing their duties. Again, you can protest, but you cannot get in their way. You cannot follow them. You can stand across the street, yell and scream all you want to for what they're doing, but you can't involve yourself. And I think that's where the lines got really blurred, and people thought, well, we can just do whatever we want to do. We cannot. So, conspiracy to impede or injure federal officers, a core charge, Title 18, Section 372, alleged planning and execution of direct actions on dates like January 23rd and March 1st, 2026, using vehicles, trailers, check hedgehogs, homemade shields, and physical resistance to block operations. Use of encrypted apps, Signal, right, for coordination, role differentiation, dispatchers, commuters, co-pilots, and OPSEC. So there was somebody, I forget what the video was, but one was like, oh yeah, we use Signal for all of our chats, and we even have some of our elected officials helping us. If you don't think all of y'all are about to be on the hot seat, and okay, I'm just telling you, there's going to be more people that are going to be indicted behind this. So here are the 15 that we saw in the indictment that I showed you guys. Now, I was asking, like, how does, can you explain Title 18, Section 111? And this one is assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers or employees is a key statute in the direct action case, as the indictment explicitly includes multiple counts of assault on a federal officer under this law. This statute makes it a crime to forcibly assault, resist, oppose, impede, intimidate, or interfere with a federal officer. Okay, which includes ICE, HSI agents, other DHS professionals, and many other federal law enforcement while they are engaged in or acting on account of their official duties. And see, people kept saying, well, we can just do whatever we want. No, you can't. No, these are federal agents. Like, it was just weird to me. People were just like, oh, yeah. Okay. And now you're sitting in jail. We're going to get to that in a minute. But I wanted to just get through some of this. I had another question. I said, can you find social media posts connected to any of the defendants that made alleged threats? Several defendants in the Direct Action Committee's case, particularly Kyle Wagner, aka Chaos, and Cameron Kennedy, had social media posts cited by prosecutors as evidence of threats, solicitation of violence, or intent to impede federal officers. Yeah. And I want to say that was the gentleman that wearing the bulletproof vest that we saw. That was allegedly, and I'll put it that way, allegedly, Mr. Wagner. And that was one of the videos that I actually showed you at the beginning. And I said, can you list websites that rallied to encourage individuals to report ICE sightings in their areas to alert people? Now, there were websites that were set up to say, hey, ICE is going to be over here. ICE is going to be over there. Is that a crime? No. But if your intent is to stop them from doing their job, and you're encouraging people to stop them from doing their job, then yes, you're going to be seen as an accessory to this crime, in my opinion, right? So, Communad's organization, that was one. Reporting ICE. Monarcha of Minneapolis, this was another one. They trained thousands as neighborhood observers, provided know your rights resources, and encouraged nonviolent monitoring and reporting. Immigrant Defense Network, IDN, state that they coordinated rapid response. And then People Over Papers, a crowdsourced national platform. Now, many of these efforts tied to neighborhood signal groups, Whipple Watch, and patrols for real-time alerts, as referenced in the indictment materials. Some use vehicle databases, right, for tracking suspected ICE plates. So they were, and I don't think that would be considered doxing if they put out publicly that was doxing. But yeah, they were tracing all these people. It's like, wow, if you used your powers for good, we have a really amazing society. So did the ACLU have anything listed on their site? Yes. So the ACLU of Minnesota had resources listed on their website related to ICE activity, but not a dedicated public hotline for real-time ICE sighting reports or rapid response alerts like Copal, Minneapolis, or Monarcha. Okay. So the ACLU offered reporting ICE misconduct and constitutional violations. So they were like, know your rights, know your resources, etc. Well, I looked and I said, has the ACLU represented or bailed anyone out of jail in regards to ICE? Yes. The ACLU has extensively represented people detained by ICE, and their work has directly led to releases, including through bond hearings. So the ACLU and its affiliates routinely sue ICE and the Department of Homeland Security over detention conditions, lack of access to counsel, due process violations, and prolonged detention without hearings. Provide or coordinate pro bono legal representation for immigrants in ICE custody. Challenge policies denying bond hearings, winning court orders for hearings and releases. File case action lawsuits affecting thousands, such as case restoring access to bond hearings in regions like New England, Michigan, Nevada, and California. Okay, so they help out there. What I wanted to go back to is to show you guys, here is the ACLU in Minnesota, right? And it just kind of outlines what I just read to you. But they say, okay, this is what we're here to do. We're here to help you do this. Then I went to just the ACLU's website. So defend the rights of all people nationwide with immigrants' rights, trans justice, reproductive freedom, and more at risk. We're in courts and communities across the country to protect everyone's rights, and we need you with us. So this is what ACLU is. This is kind of who they are, what they're doing. Now, I also wanted to look at the ICE Watch organization. Now, ICE Watch was an organization that Miss Good, the person that unfortunately lost their life earlier this year, this was something that she was a part of, I want to say, or at least in communication with, allegedly. But this is some of the things that they say. This, you guys remember the whistles, right? Why a whistle in the streets? A simple tool for fast alerts, loud, recognizable, impossible to ignore. But remember how they were using them, and they were close to the officers and they were in their ears, again, impeding their investigations. I'm like, you guys have to, and they were filming these things, and these posts are everywhere on the internet. I'm like, you do realize you are in violation of messing with the federal officer. What is he doing? So each de-arrest is a shaking off, which is to say, each one is a micro infantida, which can spread and inspire others until we may finally shake off this noxious ruling order altogether. So here's the ICE agent, here's the detainee, right, that the ICE agent's trying to detain, and here are two other people trying to pull this person away. That's impeding a federal officer. That's jail time. You're going to go to prison. And this is what you're promoting. Lawlessness. Stop. Again, you don't like what's happening, you can protest across the street. Yell all you want to. You cannot stop them from doing their job. They do have a job to do. And The reason why they're in your community, the way they're in your community, is because your mayors, your governors, and your other city council members said, we're not going to work with the federal government. We're going to release people that actually have deportation orders back into the city. We're going to do that. And we're going to put everybody at risk and in danger. And we don't care. Because if anything happens, we're going to blame it on the federal government. Yeah, happening. Okay, now let's get to this. We did Friends of Democracy. The last part I wanted to bring up to you guys was the No Kings Partners. And here it is, bigger than bubble up, ACLU. Why are we shocked? I'm not shocked. But a lot of these organizations like 501 and, let's see if I can bring up some other ones. Now, Friends of Democracy, they're not here. Again, their last little stint of, I want to say, getting any funding, is at least far as what we saw through Open Secrets, was 2016. So for about 10 years, nobody's really been giving them any money. So it's going to be, I don't want to say a rabbit hole dig, but to really find out do the Friends of Democracy still exist as maybe a sub-entity? There's a sub-entity of Friends of Democracy, because in my opinion, I don't think they're gone. I think they're still funding an organization like No Kings. And then they're all in alphabetical order, by the way. So I will make sure that you guys have the link to this in the repost of the show. But yeah, very crazy. This is what's happening. And I'm really glad that the DOJ is doing their job to keep us safe. So thank you so much for joining me this morning on Unfiltered Vision News. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you in the next one.